Happy New Moon, and welcome to a very special edition to this Friday Night Live that we have. We have something very special and good in store for you, something very enriching. On this new moon, on this new year, we are celebrating 40 years, 40 years that this nation became a nation within a nation in all respects. And this is not just a commemoration or a milestone, but this is an opportunity for us to look at our roots and look at the foundation of where we came from and the origin stories. A lot of you don't even know the stories of the origins of this nation. They know that the Spirit of truth is here, but how did we get here to where we could celebrate 40 years of a resurrection of a culture and a nation and a people? And right now, I have the privilege, we all have the privilege of hearing the stories of the first students of Elder Shadrock, the founder of the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries. And right now, we have our very own honorable, I slapped that on you, Elder Antonio Castrilli.
Happy New Year,
Happy
Teacher
New Year.
Christopher.
Happy New Year.
Happy 40th year anniversary.
Yes. It feels nice saying that, doesn't it?
It does. A lot of reflecting. It's been quite a week, the last few days as we're leading up to this new year. And wow, so much to say. And let's let it roll.
Yeah, I mean, so we spoke a little bit about the stories. I was very interested in the story because I hear a lot of bits and pieces around. Everybody has their own perspective and everybody came in at different periods of time, but you're very unique because you came in at the very beginning. You were the very first teacher, surprisingly, to probably people who are not familiar with us. You were the very first teacher to receive that message from Elder Shadrock.
Yes, that's correct. It saved my life.
It saved
Life saver.
It saved all of our lives.
Not converting.
Not
it was
converting.
serious. Not a conversion.
It's not a conversion.
It rolled the way it was supposed to roll. It went the way it's supposed to went. Yeah, it was. Yeah, something that just is very, very deep.
It's not about me tonight. I know I came dressed up nice, other Tony's dressed up nice, but it's not about me. The story is, so I got bits and pieces of the story, and we're all gonna run through the story together with Elder Castrilli. Not just with Elder Castrilli, but we also have Elder Michael here to speak with. And we'll start at the beginning, at the origins of who you are as an individual, to understand why even this path was even laid out for you. So let's start at the beginning. How was your childhood growing up?
Well, I was born and raised in a Catholic home, an Italian home. By 16, because if I go into all the details, we'll be here for hours and days.
Take your time. Get comfortable, Uncle Tony. Take the button,
Yeah?
Yeah, get comfortable.
At the age of 16, I left school. I was in grade 11, but before that took place, at the age of 14, out of nowhere, in a sense because it was recommended by my doctor to my family that I get circumcised at the age of 14. And I'm saying, what's circumcision? What is this? I get circumcised at the age of 14. I was always doing well in school, especially the years from grade 6, 7, 8, 9. I was doing really well in school. So when I left school in grade 11, because of the state that I was in, when I was 16 years old, I wrote a few words here, as you have, to kind of try to capture, which is almost, I don't know how to even to put into words what I was experiencing in my life. I was going to school, and I just felt like the walls were closing in. I couldn't stay in my class. I couldn't remain in my class because I said, ooh, what's happening? I felt like a perpetual turmoil, like something was erupting in me, an internal war. How do I describe that? No peace. I felt like I was moving about in my life like I was in prison. How does one describe? But that's what I was feeling. So I couldn't stay in school. I couldn't sit there, so I picked up and just left school. And I was doing really well, and everybody was like, Tony, those high marks, leaving school, what's going on? My parents, what's going on? And I'm like, yeah, what's going on? I don't know what's going on. I don't know. But later on, we're not really going to read scriptures today. But there was one scripture I read later on after Elder Shadrock had introduced me to the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. That was the closest scripture to describe what I was feeling. And it was from Deuteronomy 28 of all chapters, the famous Deuteronomy 28 from verse 64.
We can definitely go through it.
Let's just read that, and then we'll continue. And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people, from one end of the earth even unto the other. And there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. And among these nations shalt thou find no ease. I had no ease, Teacher Christopher. Neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest. I felt fidgety and I couldn't find any form of a pause. But the Lord shall give thee there a trembling heart. What? Everything was shaken in me. A trembling heart and failing of eyes and sorrow of mind. That was leading me into heavy depression. And thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night, and shalt have none assurance of thy life. Then the next part really catches it all and puts the icing on the cake. The next verse. In the morning thou shalt say, would God it were evening. It was like, I'm just hanging here. And at evening thou shalt say, would God it were morning. For the fear of thine heart wherewith thou shalt fear, and for the sight of thine eyes which thou shalt see. This scripture, when I read it after Elder Shadrock had introduced me to the greatest God, said, this is capturing where I couldn't express. Was 13 years, Teacher Christopher, from the age of 16, that this turmoil, war, no peace was happening in me. It was increasing at times where I had to stop, not be able to even work or do things, like I left school. Because I left school, but where was the solution? There was no solution. I left school for what? Because I couldn't sit there, what I was experiencing.
Do you know what the cause of that was, where that came from?
That's the whole thing. I was going to doctors, physical doctors, and they were like, Tony, you're a little tense. No kidding. I'm a little you're a little tense. You're a little bit on edge. Oh, yeah, but okay, take this and take that. These meds were not doing a thing for me. I was so bad. I was so bad in the sense of when it would kind of peak. One night I was laying in my bed, and I was like, in just torment, but nobody around me knew it. I tried to express it even to my family, but nobody around me even knew it. They would see me still, going and doing what I had to do at times, stopping and this, but that was all inside, internal. So one night I was laying in my bed, and as I laid in my bed, I was like, oh my gosh, can I just get a little break from this? Then out of nowhere, I couldn't move. I was wide awake, and I felt like this kind of heat from the tip of my toes moving up my body ever so slowly. Ever so slowly until it reached me, my face, my head, and went to the top of my head, and it was like that. And I felt for a few moments, and for a night, I felt, relief. Whoa. Oh, that feels so good. What was that? Oh, my goodness. What was that? And then at times I would lay in my bed at night. I'm sorry, man.
Take your time.
I would lay in my bed between awake and sleep, and I would lay there, and I would hear a whisper in my ear, push them down the stairs. Get a knife. Get a knife. Just do it. And where's that voice? What's that in my ear? What's that? Nobody else in the room. I'm in the bedroom, my bedroom, and nobody else is there. And I get the knife. Just do it. And I'm thinking, this is not positive stuff being put in my ear. Mm-hmm. I was so thankful. I'm thankful that I have a conscience to say, I can't do that. I can't do it. If I didn't have a conscience, I would just do it to my family or anyone that was around me. But it was like, no, I can't do that. Mm-hmm. It was so bad, and the years are going by, and I was teaching music. I got into music, like I was telling you earlier on, because all I knew was music. So it was in my lap to do music. So that's how I got to do music. I finished my high school through correspondence course, but I didn't go. I was, those plans of university and everything. I was a mess. So I was in this state. I was talking to a friend of mine that I did music with at the time. And he said, Tom, I know a guy. This guy can help you. I said, really? Oh, yeah, man. You come with me. So one Saturday morning, I know it was a Saturday, I get into his car, and we go. And we go see some Obia dude. Only spoke Portuguese. But he was Portuguese, so he was the translator. While this guy, I sat in front of him, and he checked me out, and no, you're saying all kinds of things in Portuguese. He was translating, asking questions, and I was answering, and all that. So, and then he said to me, my friend, he goes, Tom, this guy can help you. I said, help me? Yeah. He can help you, but got to follow. He's going to tell you what to do. I said,
how old were you at this point?
I don't know my exact age, but I was in my early 20s. Mm. And he said, yeah, he'll give you instructions. On the way home, we're going to stop off at a store. We're going to buy some supplies. So we stopped in the store, and it happened to be on College Street. And we got these supplies, packed up this bag like this of goods, and he was basically giving me the stuff to do, like baths and oils and all kinds of stuff to do, this kind of rituals. So I get this stuff, and I go sit in the car. While I'm sitting in the car, and he's going around to get in the driver's side, in my right ear, buy a Bible. Buy a Bible. He gets in the car, and he goes, oh, hey, okay, let's go, man. Did you say something? No. Buy a Bible. Clear as day in my right ear. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm really losing it. If they're going to be getting me strapped up and be putting me in the back of a wagon and be shooting me down the road and locking me up for a while, I'm losing it. Where's this buy a Bible boy? Buy a Bible. It would speak clearly, and then there'd be a gap of about 15 seconds, and repeat. And I got home. Okay, man, we got the stuff that you guys, oh, yeah, we'll talk later. We'll get started. You can start, tomorrow and whatever, yeah, you'll be better, man. This is going to help you. And he leaves and buy a Bible. My family's there. I'm the only one hearing this. So what do I say to them? okay, I'm going to go buy a Bible. So I call my friend, and she's, cool, you know what we're doing later on? We're going to bookstores. Cool, okay, so we went to the Annex area. If you know, the Annex is Bloor West between Bathurst, Spadina area.
Yes.
A lot of bookstores. Where are we going? We're going to get a book. No problem. What book? The Bible. The Bible. Yeah, we're going to get the Bible. Why? I don't know. And still, this is, buy a Bible. It would not cease. Long story short, I got in there. I said, do you have any Bibles? Yeah, and they're in the back. Go in the back, they're on the right. I go there. I see a few. I put my hand like this, pulled it down. Paperback Bible, $5.95 at the time. I remember that's. Don't ask me why I remember that. Anyway,
you're the number guy.
So anyway, I take it, and as I go to the counter, pay it. Guess what? You know what's next? The voice stopped. The voice stopped. So the next day, my friend calls me. Okay, Tony, you ready to go? No, I said, no, change of plans. What are you talking about? I'm not doing this. I'm not going to do it. I don't know why, but I had to buy a Bible. You bought a Bible? Yeah, I bought a Bible. I can't go through with this. I can't go through with this. I don't know what to say or how to explain it. But I cannot do it. I bought a Bible. I'm going to try to read the Bible. What? Oh, how about the stuff? I said, you can come and get the stuff and take it with you. It's yours. And he came over, picked it up, and I didn't see him since for a long time. For a long time. So, but all the stuff still continued, this edginess, this unwrestled stuff, no peace, all this. And then it happened one night where I was laying there again between sleep and awake. And as I laid there again, next thing I knew is my nose was touching the ceiling of my room. I was like up there. I was like, oh. And all I could see is clouds. And then the specific, clear words written in cloud form, like a fantasy movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Be patient, in bold letters, be patient, I love you. As soon as I read, be patient, I love you, whoom! I was back in my bed and I was like, whoa, whoa. And be patient, I love you. Who's telling me, what's this? Be patient. Who loves me? Mm-hmm. Be patient, I love you. And this was, but there were comforting words. I don't know from where, who, or what was happening, but it brought me a little bit of like hope in a dreary situation. And through all of this time, Teacher Christopher, I was doing music. And all of this was going on. Increasing, decreasing, getting through the day, getting through the night. Better at times, worse at times. But that volcanic eruption, no ease, nothing, was constantly there. So I was like in a prison. I felt so like, oh my gosh, this is what life is all about. At the time, I got into more music, and we can spend hours on all these various subjects. I was teaching music in the day. I had my own classes at my home, and I was doing that. And then I was doing studio work with many children of Jacob, which they were doing recordings, and they were pressing the records, putting them out, and all of that. So, and my name was getting around, so I was getting a lot of work doing stuff for studio work, besides my students. So my whole livelihood was music. So at this time, I get a call. It was 1983. With this solid, strong voice, I get this call. I said, hello. And hello, is this Tony? Yes? And I said, yes. My name is Shadrock.
So and this is how old are you at this time?
Well, this is 1983, so I was of all ages, just about to turn 28. It was the year I'm going to turn 28, and we know about cycles.
Yes.
Thanks to Elder Shadrock, I was going to turn 28 that year. But this was May 24th, a Tuesday at 10 a.m. that Shadrock first came.
Oh, you know the time too.
Again, it is something that stands out for me, that he first came and met with me at my place to work on 2 of his songs. Now, from that time in 1983, I could spend time talking about what my first impression with Elder Shadrock. It was totally professional. Totally, he presented him as a gentleman. He was prepared. He knew what he wanted. And I can give it all, but again, we have so much time, right?
Yeah.
But I saw that he was unique amongst men because, first of all, and number one, he got there 15 minutes before 10. The time was for 10. I was prepared 11, 11:30, 12. That was what I was used to.
Right.
With, I hate to sound, that's what I was used to with the musicians and the guys I was working with.
Yeah.
He was there at 9:45. Who's this guy? He's already, I've never seen this yet. Nobody's on
Had
time.
a great first impression.
No, super first impression. So he comes and he's prepared. He comes with this stuff. He came and that was that time in 1983. And from then we worked on his music. And that's all we did. We never spoke anything when it came to God, spirituality. We didn't get into any of this stuff. It was all music. So here we are doing it, off and on whenever it was time, working with his tunes, with his songs. So here comes 1985, the summer, July time, July, middle of July, end of July. He gives me a call. Hey, Tom, I got to work on some more tunes. Mm-hmm. All right, man, let's go to, Shad. I used to call him Shad, Shad. Oh, no. No. What's up? I'm not feeling well, man. No, I'm not well. I don't know how to explain it or describe it, but I'm not well. Okay.
And this is the same turmoil that you felt since
This
you
is
were
the same
14.
stuff, because you got to remember, from the time I was 16 until here I am, in my 29, I'm at 29, or this is still the 13 years. It was nonstop. I'm not saying at the same level, up and down, but it was always there.
Yeah.
So when he called me, he said, okay, you're not feeling well. You know what? I'll call you in a couple of weeks. We'll get going, man. Raring to go. And he's, elder. So I'll call you in a couple of weeks. And elder, when he says a couple of weeks, to the moment, 2 weeks later, my phone rings,
Literally a couple.
Literally.
A couple,
and
too.
here's hey, Tom, it's Shad, man. Hey, Tom. Hey, Shad. Okay, man. Oh, no, man. What's up, Tom? What's up? What's going on? I'm just going to come and see you, okay? I assure you, you come and see me. We're friends, man. We do music, but we're friends. Sure, okay, I'm going to come and see you. He comes to see me, and we're at around the top of the stairs at Hallam, with the stairs that lead to the music room, and we're chatting, and he goes, what's? I said, I don't know, man. He goes to me, you have a Bible? I said, yeah, actually, it's quite a story how I got that Bible.
That's the only Bible you ever got?
At that time, it was more. But that was the one that I had at that time that I was using. And so I said, yeah. He goes, okay. Get a pen. You have a pen, paper, pencil. We're going to sit. You're going to sit? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. again, we can spend hours about all the different things I was checking out, doing with my life, checking out, always curious, looking into UFOs, into aliens, into hauntings, into possession, into all, studying anything that I can try to find somewhere where I tapped into that would bring me some form of conclusion to what, I don't know what. I don't even know how to put it, right?
So
but,
interesting.
But anyway, I said, sure. So he came to my house that August day. And look at that, August. Mm-hmm. We can spend hours on August alone.
I know.
1985, August, he came. It was a beautiful sunny day. We went into my backyard, and my backyard had a grapevine and a picnic table underneath. The grapevine acted as a nice shade, other than the nice grapes on it that we used to snack on. Mm-hmm. But it was there that we sat down. He sat there, I sat there, and that's where it all happened. The greatest day, most golden day of my life, where he introduced me to the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. He showed me scriptures, and I read the scripture about hair like wool. So it was like, for me, the color was for me, that's what it is. Cool. Who am I to say, hey, what's going on here? Hey, hair like wool. The waters came together, and it was the land. And he, as he sat there with me, he had me reading. And it was like, yes, something is happening at this picnic table. With this at the time, I didn't look at it this way, but later on, with this Israelite man, like in Acts 10 with Cornelius, this Israelite man is the only hope. This salt of the earth is the only hope that I would have, or anybody else in this planet would have. If the Israelite isn't there, where's our hope? Mm-hmm. Elder Shadrock was that man to this day. And he introduced me, and it was like, oh. And he only knows what he was feeling, because he was thinking, what is this white guy, Italian. I don't know how he was seeing it. For me, and it was like, what's going on? So as we walked up this side alley of my home, going towards the front of the house, I said, Chad, so what am I? Who am I? Mm-hmm. He said to me with no hesitation, you're an Israelite. Whatever he was, whatever he saw and experienced. Our elder's elder for many reasons from way back. He is a prepared vessel in every way. You're an Israelite. I'm a what? Israelite. So I never heard of this. Israelite. What's Israelite? But I'm okay. How do I pray? What do I do to pray?
How did it feel when he said that you were an Israelite?
It didn't click in the sense of, okay, it was like, okay. But because of the way it was, I said, yeah, I totally accepted it. It was maybe, I'm Italian, I'm born in Canada, no. And he told me and showed me, in real summing it up quick, how to pray. So I went upstairs, went in my house, and I prayed for the first time. And it was, I can't put into words. I want to read something here before I continue, if I may, Chris, because there's so much, and I know there's just so much. I can't explain the unreal experiences that were taking place. Instantaneous stuff started to happen. Instant. It wasn't like, oh, yeah, let's go, let's go and watch a movie or try to relax. Instant dreams of many spirits being removed from my house. Spirits that were clearly very evil and very corrupt. Spirits that were controlling me and keeping me oppressed. As they were being removed, I was getting better and better and better. This was baffling to all my doctors. Like, what's going on? But you're better. You're clearly better. What's going on with you? Through all of this, I still wasn't understanding the magnitude and the big picture of what was happening and what was to come. I was naive. I was not even a rookie. I wasn't even in camp yet. But it was very evident to me in every way that I was changing for the better. The better and big, better, no doubt. 13 years. I was better due to the God that I was calling upon, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Amen. I could see that he is for real. Now this, I want to kind of bring the contrast of what I was experiencing before with these whispers of get the knife, do this, all that. I was laying in my bed. And I was between sleep and awake. Now I'm calling upon the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. This man, flesh and bone. I'm laying there, and I could start hearing and feeling that everything in my room is vibrating. Like these guys.
Yeah. Like an actual scary movie.
It was more than a movie because I was in it. I'm thinking, this can't be. What's going on? I'm there, and I said, I can't move. I'm laying in my bed. I can't move, and everything is starting to vibrate. As everything is starting to vibrate, I can't move. I'm being held down and pushed down in that male private area and with excruciating pain, and the reeking smell in the room was going up my nose, filling my mouth. I could taste it. A smell that I never experienced in my, like total death, dark. And I could see a dungeon, like a dungeon with two Dobermans with water, and they were coming at me right before me while this is all going on, and I'm in my bed and I'm there like, okay, now I'm, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob, help me, Father. Please help me, Father. Please help me. The release, starting to release. The vibrating starting to calm down. And my window of my room is vibrating like this, like literally moving. And I could feel, and this thing that was on top of me, whatever it was, it went down in the alley. And I could, back then with the garbage was all these garbage cans back then, with the lids that I made all this noise. I could hear all the garbage being knocked down as I'm coming out of this. And then going into the distance, and then a calmness. Difference. I was calling upon the greatest God that there was. And what was ever there couldn't stay and ran away, took off. Another experience I had, I was in my bed. Again, I can spend hours on all of these things, but we keep going. Mm-hmm. I was on the second floor in my home. I was between sleep and awake again. And I heard this voice down on the first floor saying, I'm coming up for you. I said, what the heck is that? I'm coming to get you. So I go, the stairs of my house were like a steep stairs straight down. Just like Earl's Court, they're the old houses. My house was built in 1907, Hallam. Earl's Court's 1913. So there's the same era and the same style of home. And as I got to the top of the stairs, Teacher Christopher, I could see this thing. I couldn't see the face, but this thing wasn't touching the floor. It was hovering across over the floor. And it had us looking at me. And I said, no, I'm serving the greatest God. I'm more cocky. Come up. Come on up. Come on up, man.
Ready for a fight. This is late at night? This is late at night?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this thing, with no feet, it just zoomed up the stairs, coming right for me, full speed, and I just drop kicked it. I wish I could do it here, you know. I just got and I drop kicked this thing, and it went flipping down the stairs, rolling like this. The door flew open, and this thing went flying through the front door.
Oh, man.
This thing just threw, but again, Israel, the contrast before and after, thanks to our elder Shadrock, and thanks to the God of Israel, that he put something in me that did not come easy, that was my salvation. And now my tool, my weapon, my oh my gosh, my shield. And I was saying, get out. And everything started rolling out of the house. All my furniture, pillows were rolling out like something out of The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
You know, you watch these movies and you're going, what is going on? Like, what is this? Everything is wrong. These things, in other words, all this stuff that was keeping me down and causing me all this agony, all this stuff, now it couldn't, because thanks to the God of Israel, I'm now calling upon the greatest God. I was so naive still. It was like, whoa, there's our first Passover at Hallam. We kept the first Passover. It was either, as mentioned to you earlier when we were talking, 1986 or 87. It was the springtime of 86 or spring of 87, because we keep in our new year in Abib as it's coming up now. So the first Passover, it was.
And just to be clear, Hallam was your residence.
Correct.
Yes. And you grew up in Hallam? I
did. My parents purchased Hallam. I was 6 months old.
Oh, wow. Oh, you've been for your
I
whole
was
entire
6
life.
months. Yeah. When I was born, my parents had a flat on a street called Campbell Avenue, which is the Lansdowne and Bloor area, not far from Hallam. And the other thing I wanted to mention, just going back real quick briefly, when Elder Shadrock had introduced me to the God of Israel, and I called a couple of the Italians in my area. Within 2 or 3 weeks, the group was already growing. Because I said, you got to hear this, guys. You won't believe this. You got to hear this.
It's all
Italian. I know this. All Italian. Not just white, but all Italian. All of them. Every single one. That's why it's Elder Shadrock's Italian band. You know, like an accent.
Oh, yeah.
But you know, when we kept the first Passover, I wanted to go back because Elder was there, myself and another Tony at the first Passover. And when we kept the first Passover, we kept it in the music room downstairs at Hallam. And it was a nice day, but we were there. And at the time, my grandmother was alive. She was upstairs on the first floor because we were down in the basement. And it was furnished and everything. And we also had this old grandfather clock. So we were there, and we were there going to keep the first Passover. And the first Passover, we had bought whole wheat bread, toasted whole wheat bread. Toasted whole wheat bread that Elder split it 3 ways and said, you take this tone, this is you tone, and this is mine. Wow. But anyway, we kept the service. And at the service, we're going. Elder is facing Jerusalem. I'm over here. The other Tony's over here. And as we're going on, the room was spinning like a top. The grandfather clock started ding, 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 without stopping. The phone was ringing without stopping. All this is going, my grandmother, Tony, come, Tony. You don't stop. We kept going. We did, no. And then as we're going, Tony started leaning and started falling over. Elder grabbed him, pulled him like this. And I were drinking water. We had water, and I was drinking water. The water wouldn't go down, and I had drank some of it. And I go, I don't have to. You got to finish it. I can't do it. You got to finish it. Oh my God! Oh Oh, the water wouldn't go down. And all this is going on, ding, ding, ring, the phone ring, and my grandma, Tony. It's like, whoa, 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 all this. And then we finished. Whoom. Silence. We're like, guys, what happened? That was crazy. An elder, because of, again, his understanding, his knowledge, he knows the seriousness, he knows what it means, what children mean. Mm-hmm. We all went down to the road to the Salvation Army and gave some money for the children at that time, because we had no children, but because of the meaning of it, we still did something with the children. Mm. Because of elders, again, his amazing understanding.
The understanding, yes.
Yes. And I want to say one more thing. I don't know how we're doing here with time.
I think we're doing great.
I want to say one more thing, and then, we can. There was a friend of mine that I grew up from the time we went to kindergarten class. He was living in the neighborhood, and this guy, he saw me the way I always was, and he only saw me the way he knew. I don't know how he saw me, but when I started serving the God of Israel, he saw me, and he's like, there's something different about you, Tom. There's something different about you. I said, yeah. I said, well, you know what? I'm an Israelite. An Israelite? I'm reading the Bible, and I'm learning, and I serve the God of Israel, and Israel was a man, and all this, not a country, this and that. All I know, you're different, man. You're different. This guy was of German background. Mm. He was a freelance journalist, brilliant mind. And he now was having plans to do a write up something about me, because he was so blown away. I'd be walking down the street. There he is walking down the street because he was in the neighborhood. He would wave, hey, Tom. I say, hey, Eugene. He goes, man, yeah, I know, man. Yes, and you're a man. I don't know.
Bigging you up.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, what's up with it? So, and at times I would keep my front door open, and I have the aluminum door open on a summer day, and he'd be peeking in and looking like this,
Yeah.
And I said, oh.
That sounds like my childhood.
So I opened the door. Oh, he liked espresso. I said, let's have an espresso. And okay, so he came in. That same guy, I didn't see for quite a while. There was something that he was, I don't know, connecting or something that was affecting him that made him, he was totally, whenever he see me, that's all he spoke about. What has caused you to be like this? And I was like, whoa, I don't know what's going on, like this guy's really blown away by it. It was nice. It was great to see. Because I totally know, it was like he almost was feeling like, whoa, like I went all those years, and this now something I will never forget of what brought that healing that brought that void in me that was happening. And as I read those scriptures from Deuteronomy 28, all that uneasiness brought that some form of peace. And he was done. Then I didn't see him for a while. Then I see this guy named Ralph from the neighborhood, another Italian guy, because the neighborhood was all Italian at the time. And I see him. I say, Ralph, where's Eugene? He goes, you didn't hear? He's dead, man.
Wow.
He committed suicide. So when I said, what? I saw the state that I was in, and then I saw his excitement of trying to say, whatever was happening inside of him, he couldn't handle it, and he did himself in.
Wow.
I've been talking a lot here, Teacher Christopher.
That seems like a parallel. That seems like kind of like looked at, because you grew up with him, you said.
From kindergarten.
From kindergarten. So you guys kind of walked in the same kind of life.
We went to kindergarten class. We attended many classes together. We weren't always in the same class. He was into music heavily like I was. I was always going to concerts, checking out my favorite artists and bands. He would be there. He'd be going to concerts. Always when I wasn't there, he would tell me, man, you missed a show of shows. You had to be there last night at the Gardens, or I'd be there, man, dude, why didn't you go, man? You had to see those guys. Like, we had that relationship, He was a straight, in-your-face kind of guy, and I liked that. And plus, we naturally came up together. But he couldn't handle whatever it was. And then I said to myself, wow, I got to thank my God. All those years, I never got into drugs. I was surrounded by musicians. Never became an alcoholic. I got through there until the greatest true being born again happened in 1985, that August month. What happened with Elder Shadrock, being there. The key was Elder Shadrock being there at that time. Right. But that's a fact of the road that we connected, and it led to Israel. But I can't even begin to say if it didn't happen. It was definitely not heading in a good direction. Let's put it that way. Right. But, all that.
Did you understand that when you actually saw the difference in your life after getting introduced to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, did you understand the weight of that responsibility that you kind of were? It didn't sound like you had a choice at all, as far as you felt all this turmoil.
Yeah. It was like, hey, this is your path. This is life, because this path is where you're going to find life. You're not going to find it anywhere else. And it's right here in your face. Here, it's right here. He's right here. He's right here.
Wow. That is. I know there's a lot more to that story.
There is
a lot more to that story.
But it was instant when Israel, because now we have a flag, we have an anthem. Our Constitution is established with the government of Canada. We're a nation within a nation. We have a coat of arms. We have our own calendar. Right. We have branches. We have all of this. At that time, it was the picnic table.
Yeah. Wow.
And I was so naive, and I was like not realizing the magnitude, how huge it was, that I was like, I was not going, wait a minute, do you realize what all this is happening, what this means? I thank the God of Israel that I do now know the magnitude and what it means. That there's no place like the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries on planet Earth. There's no place like this place. The others that have come and have gone, their understanding didn't go to the point where it said, whatever it takes, don't budge. Don't budge from where you are, because it doesn't get better than this. Starting with our God, with Elder Shadrock being that connection, having what we have, it is beyond any type of monetary, gold, silver, whatever it is. But the key to it all is that the understanding of, yes, the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministry is the place. It might look like, oh, come on, billions of people upon this earth, and da. This is the place. This is the place. And if a person doesn't hit hard with someone, because remember earlier we were thinking about the next 40 years and what's going to be coming. The key is understand that there's no other place, and that you're in the best place, and do whatever it takes to remain in this place. This is family. This is home. If that doesn't hit hard here, because that other guy is going to come on all sides and all ways, but there's no other place like the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries. There is none. And that's, I thank the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob that I'm here 40 years later, because I never forget that picnic table and the change after 13 years of what I was experiencing. So that experience that looked so negative, it wasn't negative. It established that home. This is home. Look what brought you relief. Look, nothing else could help you but the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries. The message that your friend, your music companion, Shadrock Porter, who's Elder Shadrock, the master teacher of the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries this day, what took place with him, never forget. It's like our God says, never forget what I did for you in Egypt, Israel.
Right.
Never forget this is the same. Because I was in Egypt. I was in prison. Maybe I'm not black, but why did I connect so strongly with Deuteronomy 28? It was like, that's me. That's me. No ease, no turmoil, no finding no rest. The morning looking for night, night looking for morning. All of this, whoa, nobody could tell me and say, no, come on, Tone, that was me. Mm-hmm. And it was this Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries that pulled me out of there. I can never forget. I can never forget.
Like the story of Cornelius. I know you love that story.
Well, that is, again, we can spend an hour, 2 hours on that, because Cornelius' story is very, very touching, because Elder Shadrock was like Peter. And, and he was told to go to Cornelius, and the men came, and he went. As Elder Shadrock, he came to Hallam. He came to Hallam Street and brought the message to me, and then the other Italians followed very quickly afterwards, and it was until Elder Michael, it was all Italians, white people, Italians, and then not just, all that happening, but yeah.
Well, Elder Castrilli, your story is very rich. It's a very rich story, a very unique story. Being the first student, that says a lot about you. When I think about Elder Shadrock, before you, he was, well, I have another understanding of the story now, because he came and he was able to offer that truth to you because of that turmoil that you was going through. And prior to that, he wanted to do his music. He was focused on doing his music, but you were the first person to he wanted to do his music so badly. He was like, let me help this guy. And that just opened up a whole door to this entire calling to now and then from where you guys started up until we are now, and even hearing you talk about the first Passover and you guys buying bread and cutting the bread up.
Yeah, that first Passover was, because he even told us, don't eat anything until tomorrow and this and that. Mm-hmm. I'm going to sit at an Italian table at supper time and not eat food and tell them I'm not eating. You know, that sounds like a little thing. We had to be at that table at dinner. There was no if and no buts. Everybody come, it's dinner time, supper, come to the table. And then you're not going to, so okay, I had to go. I couldn't say, no, I'm up in my room. No. Come down.
Yeah.
So you go and, I'm not going to eat. I'm not eating. What? You're not feeling good?
Right.
What's going on? You're not feeling good. What's up with you? What's up? Come on, I'll make you some chamomile. Chamomile is the answer to everything. Mm-hmm. Chamomile. I'll make you some. No, I'm not having anything. Anyway.
Uncle Tony, it's been a pleasure. Those of you who know Uncle Tony, right? Those of you who know Uncle Tony, you could get into the real nitty gritty if you get him some wine. Get him. He likes his pasta. He likes his breads. His bread. So give him something nice, and then he may bless you with a little bit more to the stories that you're hearing. But the story is rich. The stories, the origin stories, the first student. And I think there's no irony in it. And I think there's no coincidences in this life.
There isn't.
I don't think there's any. So thank you so much, Elder
Thank
Tony,
you.
for
Thank you.
for giving us the time to even tell your story and to give us a good insight to that beginning of the 40 years so we can have a better understanding of what the next 40 years is going to look like in contrast. So
Yes.
I appreciate you guys for coming on. Don't leave yet. We still have another student, one of the first students of Elder Shadrock coming in, and we're gonna talk about his story as well. So don't go anywhere. Go get a tea or something and come back. All right.
This is the 40-year celebration of the Israelite nation worldwide ministries.
In the springtime, everything comes to life. The birds and the bees, the flower and the trees now, the animals away.
And we're back. Earlier we were talking with Elder Castrilli about his origin stories as the first student of Elder Shadrock, an Italian man, an Italian centurion. And we heard about how in the beginning, all the receptors of that truth were Italians. Now, we're gonna move a little bit further on into the story where we got the first student that actually came from that line of Jacob, our very own, we call him the professor here at the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries, but we have our very own Elder Michael here to grace us with his story as well, which is very fundamental. He was there at the very beginning, and he saw people come in, people go, and he saw from where the nation was in its inception to where it is now. So, how are you, Elder Michael?
I'm good.
You're
Happy
good?
to be here.
You look good.
Happy
You
New
look
Year
good.
to you.
Happy New Year.
Yes.
It's a very good year. You know, this 40 years, it feels very good.
Yes, it does.
It feels very good.
Yes.
So even to come here and to sit and to talk about the story, it's a testament. It's all a testament to the strength and the power of the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. But let's get into you and your origins and your childhood even. How did you? Because a lot of people don't. They probably see you and they hear you on the Saturday and when you're giving your message and the lessons, but a lot of people don't even know your origin stories, how you grew up, even where you were born, I'm sure. So we can start at the beginning. We can start at the very beginning, wherever you like to start.
Okay. I mean, I don't really talk about myself too much because there's so much more out there that is more important.
Yeah, I think
but I can give a little bit.
I think it's important to know because, like I said with Elder Castrilli, there's no coincidences, and he was feeling such a turmoil in his story to where he didn't choose this.
Yeah.
It was thrown unto him. And so it's like, you got to look at the character of the person that was chosen.
Yes.
And so in your respect as well, we had sat down and we talked a little of your story as well, and it was similar in a lot of different ways.
That's right.
It was very similar.
Yeah, I did not choose this either. And it was, okay, to start at the beginning, I was born in the Caribbean in Barbados, and I never really went to quote-unquote church, so I wasn't a religious person. I never really got into the Bible. When I went to high school, I studied, religious knowledge, and I did that as an academic framework, but not. And the rationale behind that was I always thought to myself, as a teenager, God was up there. I knew there was a God in heaven, and I was here on earth. So I figured we'll never get to interact. And I did not see anything because, you see, I've always been very logical. And that could have some good points and it can have some negative points. So if what is being given doesn't have relevance from my analysis, then I kind of, push it aside. I like things that are going to be relevant to my life or relevant to someone that I'm involved with. So saying that, I was a very unique person from the very beginning. I didn't have a lot of friends because I wasn't into all of this social stuff. I was into things that were significant. As a boy, a teenager, my household duty or responsibility was to look after the animals that my mom and my dad had. We had cows, we had sheep, we had goats.
Oh, you're a shepherd.
Well, you can say that. I was just looking after the sheep and the goats and the cows. So while they were grazing, I would sit in the shade and read. I would always get a book, usually it's a history book or a geography book or something like that, and I would study about what's going on in the world. And, you know, I read a lot about Canada. I moved to Canada here about when I was 19. Didn't really want to come, but, you know, I did, and here I am. But one of the things that caught my attention in my research as a teenager was there was a great black civilization that no one was talking about. A hint here, a hint there, but there's no name to it. And I was very curious because we knew about Egypt, we knew about Ethiopia, we knew about Timbuktu and so on and so forth, but this civilization was never mentioned. That piqued my curiosity. When I moved to Toronto, Canada, I included that in my research. I spent a lot of time in the library, and I was looking for this civilization that no one was talking about, but a little hint here and there. Couldn't find anything. So here is something. I should also mention the fact that, as I said, I'd never been to quote-unquote church, so I wasn't a spiritual person. I had little or no spiritual knowledge, very little spiritual understanding. So, because I was too logical.
But you still believed in God.
I knew there was a God, yes. But like I said, he was in heaven. And I was in earth, so I figured, because I didn't understand the connection. You see, there was so much that I could not relate to. And there was no one out there that would tell me or share that knowledge with me. So I was stuck. So I parked those things in the back of my head in a file saying, you know, unknown. But I always would pull them from time to time to see if I'm getting knowledge of those subject matters. Now, when I came to Canada, like I said, I continued to do my research, investigating, and I added something to that because now I am in with a different culture, different types of people. There's Asians, there's Africans, the Caribbean, and Europeans. Everyone is there. And as you know, there's usually those, sometimes they don't mix well. So I had to understand why the so-called black man faced so many obstacles. And because I never had any issue with, as they call it, racism, I never understood that. So this was my first awakening, so to speak, that I had to investigate for myself. So that's how I got into investigating and researching and trying to put together the pieces that were missing from my life, from my understanding of society, and so on and so forth. And that is how that was my entree into the spiritual life that I'm living today. And I'll share that with you, how I got started into that endeavor.
Okay. So you said you had never experienced no spiritual events prior in the beginning.
No.
But you believed that there was a God.
Yes.
And you couldn't really make the correlation between the spiritual connection between spirituality and God.
Right,
basically.
God and man.
God and man.
Yeah.
Interesting. What was one of your first? Did you ever have any spiritual experiences?
I did, actually, because here's what happened. Because I looked everywhere, I spent so much time in the library, and I'm looking for answers to questions in my mind that I could not find. I said to myself, you know, here's what I'm going to do. Since I can't find it on the outside, I'm going to try to get the answers from the inside. So I did the best that I could do, given my lack of spiritual understanding at the time. I came home from work, took my shower, got into my pajamas, turned off all the lights in the house, in my apartment, laid on the couch, and I said, you know what? I'm going to go right back to the beginning of time, and put the pieces together and see if I can make sense out of what's going on in the world today. And specifically who I am, why I face all these challenges, and so on and so forth. And as I did that, and I got into a zone, the answer came to me. And I was told, go get your Bible. That's the answer that came to me. And I said no. I said no because I said I don't want to get involved with Christianity. At that time, I thought the Bible was a Christian book. So I said no to that. And I said, okay, let's try this again. Going back into that, trying to get back to sleep. And the answer came again. And the answer was, go get your Bible. I said no again. So then I thought, you know what? This is not working. Let's forget about it. So I got up, turned the lights on, turned on the television. Because the answer that I was looking for didn't come to me the way I thought it would. Even though I didn't have spiritual knowledge, I may have had a little nugget of understanding spiritually. Because I was ignorant of self, and as I said, I thought the Bible was a Christian book, so I didn't want anything to do with Christianity. Even then, I couldn't explain why I didn't want anything to do with it. However, a couple of weeks later, after that incident, I saw there was a newspaper here in Toronto called the Contrast newspaper. And there was an article in the Contrast. And the article dealt with Israelites and the black people, the children of slavery, being the descendants of the Israelites, the ancient Israelites. And it was written by Elder Shadrock, on this, Shadrock Porter. And he described a little bit of the culture and the history and so on and so forth. And I said, yes, that's what I was looking for. So right away, I made a connection. And I looked on the article, and by the way, I was looking for the article this week because I kept a copy. And this is, I know it's 40 years old, but I couldn't find it. I know it's somewhere because I don't keep these lying around the house. I put them away. So I'll find it one day.
Yeah, we got it. That's archives. That's history.
But yeah, check the Contrast newspaper if you can go online and check it out and see the article that I'm talking about. However, there was a number that Elder Shadrock posted and with the article. So I called that number right away. And I said to him, how could I be a part of what you're doing? I didn't ask him, who are you? I didn't ask him where you went to school. I didn't ask him for his qualifications. I asked him, how can I be with you? That's what I asked. Even though I didn't know anything about the Bible, I didn't know anything about Israelites, never heard the term before, nothing like that. I just knew that I had a connection with him.
That sounds like a spiritual experience to me. That's so interesting. So you being a logical person, and you instantly, when you saw Israelite and the cultures about the Israelites or whatever was in the article, you made a connection without even diving deep into the research.
Exactly. It's almost like this is what I was looking for all these years and could not find. I don't know how I knew that. All I knew is this is it. I felt good, and that's why I called. And he said to me, I'm in the process of establishing a school, and when things are right, I'll call you back. He took my number. I said, great, thank you. And then about a couple of weeks later, he called. And he gave me instructions on how to get to the location. And it just so happens that Elder Castrilli, he was the first person that I met when I got to that location on Hallam Street. And I remember that's Elder Castrilli, and he said to me, my brother Shad. And I said to myself in my head, you know what? I could swear that man, Shadrock, that I talked to was a black man.
Right.
But here now, a so-called white man is right here. And I said, But I said to myself, after making that statement in my head, I'm not here to see who's black or who's white. I'm here to learn. I took my shoes off, and I followed Elder Castrilli.
Oh, wow. So what was that first interaction with Elder Shadrock? What did that look? What was your first impression of him?
I was blown away. Number one, I didn't know anything about the Bible, but the reason that I was impressed about because he had a very comprehensive way of putting the knowledge across. It was biblical, of course. It was historical. It was cultural. And it was also inclusive. I mean, there's political aspects of it as well, social. Everything was in there. It's about the past. It was about the present. It was about the future. And I took it all in because that's the kind of person I related to. And that was kind of some of my personality was being expressed in some of his teaching. And, the little bit that I knew. But he took it to a whole different level. And I was so impressed with that. I would say, yes, in the right place with the right man at the right time. And I enjoyed that tremendously. And that is what I built my life on for the rest of it from that time. I was in my early 30s at that time.
When you met Elder Shadrock?
When I met him, yeah.
Do you remember even at this time, you haven't read the Bible yet?
Exactly.
Okay.
Hadn't read the Bible. And the only scriptures I read was the scriptures that he would have given us on that time. I don't remember them now, but
I was just about to ask if you remember what that scripture was that you kind of first read, or what that was introduced to you to read.
He showed us, as the children of slavery, as I think Elder Castrilli talked about Deuteronomy 28. He talked about some of that. And then there were some other scriptures in there as well, that like Amos 3, 1-2. And the scriptures that he showed in Psalms 147, it was all about Israel. What I took away from his teaching, you had the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I learned his name from Elder Shadrock. And you had the doctrine, which is written from Genesis to Revelation, and it's all about the Israelites. So, God and the Israelites, a family. And I learned that I was a part of that family. And that is what really got me, because now I have a responsibility. I had, expectations. And then he taught that there was a covenant that binded us together. I thought I was blown away completely. Because now when the covenant's an agreement between the God of Israel, now we're talking about the creator of heaven and earth here. And little me. So now I had to raise my standards, come to grips and understand what was required of me. So now I had to get into the scriptures and study and see. And I studied the first 5 books, and that gave me the foundation from which to proceed. Because again, it's about the God of Israel and the Israelites, the children of slavery, the Jacobites.
How long did it take you? So, when you first came in, it was all Italians.
Yes, that's like I said, I was the first black guy,
right,
so to speak, so-called black guy.
So-called black guy, right. I'll say richly melanated. How about that one?
I learned that later, and this is why, I tell people all the time, I was ignorant once, didn't know anything, okay? But I had a desire to learn, to remove that ignorance and replace it with wisdom. And thereby, I couldn't do that myself, so I had to rely on my elder Shadrock and those that he was teaching to give me that knowledge and that understanding and that awareness. And of course, I learned more the more I got involved. I saw Elder Shadrock as a messenger of the covenant. He was sent by the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob to teach us about him. Not himself, about the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And he did an excellent job. And that is what helped me. So I have, like I said, from the beginning, I had to recognize that I had responsibilities and obligations. I had a signed agreement that I had to fulfill.
When did you notice that responsibility was there?
That responsibility came while we were still at Hallam. And you said like how was the teaching earlier, and there were so many people there, and 99% of them were from a Christian background. They had all types of questions being thrown at Elder Shadrock. And I was so impressed with the way he dealt with it. Very professional, very relevant. And he had the evidence, the scriptural evidence to substantiate it, as well as historical and cultural evidence. So he was able to deliver on all the questions that were asked. That impressed me. The way, there was no arguments. You had an instructor, and he gave according to the doctrine, and that was it. Accept or reject.
So now that we've come to this point, or you came to this point after you met Elder Shadrock,
Yes.
What are the significant changes that happened in your life?
Huge changes. Because Harlem was my center of learning, if you call it that, the origin. But then as the teaching of Elder Shadrock got to be known, the population increased, the audience. So we had to move, we had to relocate. And Elder Shadrock then found another place at Bloor and Dufferin, for those of you who know the Toronto area. And we moved there to set up. Now, of course, this one, we had to pay for this one, and so on and so forth. But one of the things that really got my attention is 90% of the people that were there at Hallam never made it to Bloor. And I was curious as to why. Later on, from my learning, it's almost as if they were weeded out. They didn't quite make the grade. When you're in school, when I was growing up, if you don't pass the test, you don't get promoted.
Right.
You don't go to the next class. You have to spend another year in that class. And if you did really, really well, you skipped a class.
Right.
You see? And this is the same thing, I thought, as I learned over the years. So that 90% did not make it, but I made it. And I was happy about that. And Elder Shadrock, then I remember sitting down with him and going over scriptures one-to-one. And he taught me so much one-to-one, face-to-face. Because I could see from, what was written and how he was explaining it to me that I had a significant role to play. And I was determined to find out what that role was.
When do you think you found out that role? How long did it take?
It didn't take long.
No.
It did not take long. And I'll tell you why. While we were at Bloor Street, and the few of us that was there, listening to his teaching, I was so impressed. And he was telling us all that, we are a nation within a nation. He was explaining that we were a spiritual nation. And all of these things, and of course I'm reading the first 5 books, studying on my own, trying to understand. And I'm like, so if we're a nation, how can I help to display our nationality? And that's why I said, and having that thought in my head, I had a vision. And I saw Elder teaching, and we were by the lake. And to the right side of him was a flag. And the flag was made of the colors of the tabernacle of witness that was established by Moses in the wilderness. So I took that image that I saw, and I designed the first flag for the Israelite nation so that we could showcase our nationality to the world. So purple, white, red, and I put the double triangle in the middle so that I could communicate to others who didn't understand what those colors meant, because most of the children of slavery, they go with the green and the black and whatever, I don't know. But so there it was. Later on, Elder Shadrock would improve that to what we see here today. And that is something that was a great step for me, because I could show that, yeah, I have to give back. I can't just take. I have to share that knowledge. And when people see, you can say you're a nation, but as Elder Castrilli was saying, you have to break it down for those that want to see the national distinction. And that, I thought, made a big difference. And even to this very day, when you come through the waters, it's the first emblem that you will see. That you're now, and even coming here to the Israelite nation, when you enter into our gates, it is like coming into a different country. You're no longer in Toronto. You are now within the Israelite nation because you passed through those two flags. So therefore, your behavioral technique should change once you've entered into this Israelite nation. Now, I didn't know all of that at the beginning, but that is part and parcel of my elders' teaching. I didn't know about the tabernacle of witness until I learned from what happened when we left Egypt with Moses.
Were there any concepts or any ideas that Elder Shadrock introduced you to that was hard for you kind of to wrap your mind around?
I'm sure that there were. I can't think of anyone specifically, but it's not like I can sit here and understand and embrace the Bible, word for word or chapter for chapter. Mm-hmm. There are stuff that goes over my head. But I've learned, remember, I was ignorant once concerning self. Now I have a better understanding of who I am and whose I am and some of my responsibility. This is and it's all because of the teaching of my elder Shadrock. As the messenger of the covenant, he was able to show me through his teaching the wisdom of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, so that I could follow the pattern that Elder Shadrock has laid out. And I always wanted to be like him, but I never told him, just in case I didn't make it. You see? But that's not the issue. The issue is I've learned so much that the few things that I cannot understand, I've always parked it, as I said, in that unknown file that I have. I have several files back here. You can't see them. Mm-hmm. And maybe in 10 years, the answer would come. Mm-hmm. You see? And that's how it was with me. Things would happen that would reveal a better understanding of the situation. So I'm patient enough to wait and keep learning, keep searching to find what it is that I really want to know. Yeah. But in the process, I've learned a lot of other things. You see? Yeah. And so there's never a dull moment because there's so much going on in my head.
That kind of reminds me of that scripture that says, let patience have her perfect work within you. And, there's a lot of things that we don't understand. And I was telling somebody the other day that it's okay to not know. Like, there's going to be a lot of things that you don't know in this life. But the beauty of it, and I think you've expressed that when you was a kid, you had that genuine curiosity. So yeah. I think something like this, where the journey is never ending, the journey to finding wisdom and knowledge and understanding is a never ending one. I'm assuming that was something that you clinged on to.
And I'll give you a great example. Because like I said, it is not about my taking. Yes, I'm taking, but I also have to give back. So it's a symbiotic relationship. You get a little, you give a little, and so on. So when we were at Bloor Street, and as I said, the population wasn't there, we couldn't, for economic reasons, we could not contain or maintain that building for a long time. So after a few months, it was decided that, okay, we have to prepare another location. And that location that was going to be prepared would be Earl's Court. Right. However, at that time, there had to be, work to be done and so on in that preparation. So we had to give up that location at Bloor. And I said to myself, I'm not going to allow the wisdom and the advanced teaching of our elder Shadrock to fall to the ground. I'm going to use that knowledge to the best of my ability to share it with those who seek the truth and seek answers to their solution, to their issues, their problems, like I did. And that is when I started teaching. And in the process, you know, the more I taught, the more I learned.
Right, that's a beautiful part.
Yeah, and I find it so fascinating. And this is why I'm always interested in sharing that knowledge with those that seek the truth. So, in the process of doing that, I recognized that I was helping to build a bridge to truth and freedom. What do I mean by that? This is the restoration of our Israelite nation, right? And in order to do that, you have to have an opportunity. Remember, what I'm doing here, or what I was doing then and I'm doing today, you're bringing people out of the darkness into the light. The light is the truth, which is the word of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Someone, in the same way that Elder Castrilli and Elder Shadrock guided me through that process initially, now I could guide others across that bridge, taking them out of their darkness, out of their level of ignorance that I used to be in myself, guiding them across the bridge, and then putting their hand into the hand of my elder, Shadrock.
Full circle moment.
Yeah, and he will continue to teach them, and one day introduce them to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So my responsibility was the journey across the bridge, and to help to build that bridge. And that's what I started to do after we left Bloor Street.
And then you start to give lessons. What did that first lesson look like? Do you remember?
I don't remember the first one per se, but I do remember one that really stands out. Now, one of my first students was Elder Freddie. And when he came, there were some other guys that came with him as well. As a matter of fact, I had the privilege of teaching, or transporting, I should say, across that bridge, 6 young men that helped to form our royal priesthood. And Elder Freddie was one of them initially. And the reason why I mention him is he is still here. The others, they failed. However, he used to bring his daughter, Jaleesa. She was just a babe. And one day, his wife, Elder Tammy, she was curious about where he was going every Saturday afternoon and taking their little daughter. She's still in diapers. So she decided, you know what? I'm coming. I want to see what you're doing.
Right, naturally.
And she came at that time we had moved, because like I said, Earl's Court wasn't quite ready yet, and we were at Shoreham at a different location. And she came, she saw that he was actually attending a unique Bible study. And I was teaching at that time. And I can say this about her, she has never left since. And that was almost, 30-something years?
That would have to be,
yeah. And that has been, but to get to your point, I was reading Paul, and Paul was explaining, I forgot the chapter where he was explaining certain things. I didn't quite understand what he was saying.
Right. A lot of people don't.
Well, yes, right, and I was one of them. But my point here is, I decided, reading that, Paul is saying when I should do this, I didn't do it because I did that and everything, and I'm like, this doesn't make no sense. So I read it quick and skipped it. And then suddenly she raised her hand. And she looked at me and said, can you explain that, please? I said to myself, oh, my God.
I mean, I know what you're feeling, because I would do it too.
But I said, sure. And I went back to the very beginning and started to read it again, slowly this time, trying to understand it. As I was reading, I started to explain to her. And as I started to explain to her, she started to understand it. And as she started to understand it, I started to understand it. And as all of this is going on there, I started to ask me, how the heck am I doing this? I'm explaining to her what I don't know, but it's making sense to her, and it's making sense to me also. I'm like, damn, how is this happening? And it's almost like there were like three people here, because I'm talking to me, I'm talking to her, and I'm explaining it. How is that happening? Mm-hmm. And I said, wow. And I ran all the way, well, I didn't run all the way home. When I got home, I called Elder, and I'm explaining to him, like, you know, like, what is going on here? How is this happening? You know, and he understood it, you know, and so on and so forth. But that was a big learning experience for me, because it helped me, it humbled me even more, that this word is not my word. I am the one chosen by a higher power to teach it. And because I applied the spirit of humility and discipline and obedience, then that would invite, as Elder had taught me before, we are in a spiritual environment. This is a spiritual nation. So the Spirit would come when we need that help and fulfill the mandate that we are required to display. Mm-hmm. And that is what happened. That was one of my first experiences there.
I guess that would be that classifies as spiritual. I know exactly what you mean when you. That happened to me before too. So let's get more into
and that was just the beginning, because
yeah.
I've used that. Well, I didn't say use it. There are many times I would get up and I would start to teach. Have no idea what I'm saying, but as I'm listening to me, it makes sense. And I used to, back in the day, I would write certain points out if I'm doing a presentation. And I would do that because I wanted to take a screenshot, so that I can remember what I said. Mm-hmm. Or I would ask one of the people in the audience to make notes for me, so that I could know what I talked about. And when I get home, I can review it and learn.
And find out what you said.
Yeah. So my point is, I'm just a vessel, you know, but a vessel with responsibility and obligation. It's not about me. It's about the God that I serve. And I have to do the best that I could to fulfill the mandate that I was called to fulfill.
This is the 40-year celebration of the Israelite nation Worldwide Ministries.
In the springtime, everything comes to life. The birds and the bees, the flower in the trees now. The animals away from hibernation.